I never thought I'd have anything in common with the previous speakers because I'm here to talk from LinkedIn about B2B brand building, and they're talking about misogyny. But in my last but one job, I was the first marketing director of Lad Bible, and we did the Uok Mate campaign, and I can speak to the use of the word mate as a really engaging thing. But I also think that my experience from that job told me one thing, which is that the best way to change behavior in men is to recognize the great goodness and generosity and decency of their vast majority, and to use that as an insight delivers much, much more change, in my opinion, and we spent some time thinking about that. So I just wanted to drop that in. Before I start to tell you about some research that we did, the B2B Institute at LinkedIn has, I think, one job. I mean, we do a number of different things. So we work with researchers, we work with academics, and we create IP and strategic work to help guide the way that our clients invest their marketing spend. But what we really, really do, I think, is we help CMOs get more brand money from their CFOs. That's really what they come to us for. And there is a problem with the word brand, especially in the very highly logical, rational, professional environment world of B2B advertising. But B2B is a growth category. These are big businesses spending much more money on advertising, much more money on marketing, and getting savvy about brand building. But the problem is brand is difficult to explain even to another marketer. If I ask 10 marketers what they mean by brand, or 10 creative directors, I'll get 11 answers. I guarantee it. So what I wanted to do about a year ago is to run an experiment. And we worked with Roger Martin. So I don't know if you know, Roger Martin's the reason that I became a marketing strategy person. He wrote Playing to Win, Design Thinking. I think he's Harvard Business Review's most published author. He worked with Procter & Gamble for decades, still does. We worked with him on this piece of work, and now Starbucks and Lego, if you go to their websites, you will see that they are defining their mission in terms of the promise that they make to their customers. And that was even before the research came out, when we took the preliminary results to Roger, because he advises their CEOs. I think that there's a lot to do with brand that I cannot crystallize. The one thing I wanted to test was, if I articulate the value that my product creates for the customer, do I get better, different, similar, or completely different results when it comes to commercial performance? Because that's the discussion that we have to have. And this is what we tried to do. A promise to the customer, and if I had longer than 6.5 minutes, I'd explain, well, is really a wrapper for the 4 Ps, but in a way that everybody understands. Your granny can understand it, your 6-year-old can understand it, and, critically, your CFO can understand it. If your CFO understands brand, it's frequently to just take brand on your spreadsheet and say, oh, you know, Mimi, I don't need to spend that money this year. This is it's a heated steering wheel. It's great when times are good, but you know what? Inflation's 10%, interest rates are soaring, our whole model of financing has really gone out the window. I'm going to find that bit of brand spend, and this year we're not going to have it. Try to say that about your promise to the customer. It's a different conversation altogether. So what we tried to do is to find a data set, because that's always what's really difficult, to help us to understand how to test this. We worked with Uok, which is they have campaign metadata from dozens of different campaigns around the world and across a long period of time. And what we did is we got their researchers to do an analysis of what campaigns that make a promise to the customer. They clearly, in the campaign objectives, articulate the value that that creates for the customer and make that the through line of a campaign. So it could be a campaign on multiple different channels, it could be different creative. Here are some examples of a campaign that makes a clear promise to the customer. So this is BT Beyond Limits. Unbreakable Wi-Fi for business, that's a promise. We're articulating some value that we create for you, and we're going to stand by it. Big campaign, lots of different executions, one core promise. This is sixth. If you've rented a car, you will know that quite often the shiny thing that you want and the banger that you end up with are not the same. Sixth had the go-to-market innovation to decide that if you order a specific car, you're going to get that car. And their promise is, don't rent a car, rent the car. Snickers, every time I see this, I want a Snickers, so that's how good this campaign is. But Snickers Satisfies is one of the biggest and I think most successful B2C campaigns around. And one of the reasons I contend it's really successful is that it makes a promise to the customer about what it's going to deliver. Now, we looked at 2,021 campaigns. And so the researchers went through all of them. We had 2 teams of researchers because it's a subjective thing. I said, I really want it to be clear and explicit in the objectives. Of the 2,021, 808 made a defined promise to the customer, which sort of means that 1,200 did not. 60% of campaigns are doing something other than articulating customer value. And in a way, that 600 is just as interesting as the 800 who did. And to give you a sort of thought about it, what those campaigns were mostly is rather inward-looking. They were brands telling you about their beliefs or their values in the hope that they would mirror and in some way, magically attach themselves to the client purchase. But I think we saw at least 2 bits of analysis earlier today that said not necessarily true. I would also say that we're not saying that not making a promise to the customer is a bad thing or a good thing. We're not saying that making a promise is a good thing. All I wanted to test is what are the financial outcomes. That's the only thing I wanted to test. So there's some brilliant campaigns that do different things. I just wanted to test the commercial outcomes. I'm going to run you through really quickly brand health, a bucket of different measures, but the thing about campaign metadata is you get what was increased. You get a good story from what we tried to do to what happened, and that's harder to do. Measurement of brand is so difficult because people don't have that time span. 56% of all the promise to the customer campaigns increased brand health compared to 38% of a larger number, 38% of 60% did not increase brand health. Oh no, they did, but 56% of the promise to the customer campaigns increased brand health. Now, in my non-Lad Bible job, the previous job, I was the Director of Strategy and Messaging and Research at the Liberal Democrats. And Liberal Democrats, as everybody who's ever had a leaflet will know, are the best people at bar charts in the universe. If there's a bar chart that you can skew, it's probably from the Liberal Democrats. So if I was a Lib Dem, right, this bar chart would probably start here. It would start at something like 25%, and it would give you a visual thing. But because we think this might be published by the HBR, and Roger's a stickler for this kind of thing, these don't look massively different. But that is a 48% greater likelihood of increasing brand health when you make a promise to the customer. This is a 75-page white paper, which we will send everybody. I'm just going to take you through a very high level. Market share, I think I can take to my CFO and say, this is the thing that matters to you. 27% of campaigns that made a clear promise to the customer increased market share compared to 17% of non-promise to the customer campaigns. That is a 60% delta. You are 60% more likely to increase market share when you make that promise to the customer. Now, that was a binary yes or no. So what I then wanted to find out is, so you're telling me that you increase market share, what is the magnitude of that increase? Because if the magnitude of the promise to the customer campaigns is 2%, it doesn't matter that more of them did it. If the magnitude of promise to the customer non-promise to the customer campaigns is 40%, but there's only 3 of them, there's a difference. So then we took all the sample that had that data, smaller sample, so you're not correlating this with the previous findings, but in this sample, on a mean annual basis, you had a 4% increase in market share from those promise to the customer campaigns versus the ones that didn't. Now, the last thing, which is, I think, the one that maybe you want to take away with you, is then we looked at long-term brand and sales growth, right? Uok have this kind of categorization of results for all of the, so they have the metadata for, did the campaign improve metrics? Did it deliver a short-term spike in sales? Did it deliver a sustained sales success? And right there at the top, long-term sales growth on a rank of 1 to 6. So 1 to 6 is where 1 is, everybody showed up and everybody got a medal, and 6 is you really, really made a difference. All you need to look at here is the shape of the red, which is the promise to the customer as you go up the ladder, versus the shape of the grey, which is the non-promise to the customer as you go up the ladder. Here, at the bottom, if you just want to show me some improved campaign metrics, it's kind of much of a muchness. 51-49, actually, those campaigns that didn't do a promise to the customer, many of which were social buzz or PR value, actually did, it's in the margin of error. I wish this hadn't been the Brexit vote, because I wish we'd understood margin of error in a really profound way about 6 years ago. But nonetheless, when you get to the top, 67% of the campaigns that were brand icons delivering long-term growth were promised to the customer campaigns. 33% were not. Now, what is important about those ones at the top is that they are the big budget campaigns. They're already big budget. They already run on lots of channels. They're already running for a long time. We controlled for different factors, but you'll have to look at the white paper. But they're Formula One cars already. Like, if you're a Formula One car already, how, if everything is not just about the amount of money, if it's not just about the duration, if it's not just about the distribution, then one other aspect of it is about the promise to the customer. And the reason that I think a promise to the customer matters, and the reason I think it kind of has an implication for everybody here, is because in my whole long life of trying to get ideas from one place to other people through communication channels, I've started to realize in my elderly, pre-Alzheimer's years that it's not the communication stupid. Instead of thinking about what we're saying, we need to think about how it's being received. I now contend that advertising or messaging or political messaging of any kind, if it is not optimized for the wetware of the human brain, it's just not going to work. And that is the behavioral lens that we are here because we believe in and think about. So a promise has a lot more behavioral weight than a set of words or a random set of phrases. And if you want to test that, just imagine if 50 people in your company had to stand up and recite your company's mission and vision, if they could even tell them apart, right? Somebody has got to go back to a PowerPoint and find out what that meaningless set of words is. We don't really respond to meaningless set of words. A promise is the thing that our psyches and our civilizations have been built on. We make promises all the time. When you get married, you make a promise. I promise to do these things. We respond to promises. Promises are implicitly already going to be better understood than some vague phrase. So our conclusion, at every level of commercial output, make a promise to the customer and your creative, and I would contend, in fact, I think I'd almost promise that you will get a better result than if you don't. Thank you very much.